Welcome to Shomach Shov on the Daf. We're holding in Zevachim Daf Chov Zayin. The Gemara in base right before the Mishnah says that there's a difference between the Mizbeach HaChitzoin and the Mizbeach HaPrimi. The Mizbeach which was outside in the Hazara and the Mizbeach which is inside in the Heichel. The Mizbeach which is outside is called Ritzpah. It's like the floor. And the Mizbeach inside is called Kli Sharis. So Rashi explains, why is the Mizbeach outside called a Ritzpah? Because it was built out of stone. Shaloi nimshach. There was no meshicha, there was no oil anointed on the Mizbeach. But the Mizbeach HaPrimi is Kli Sharis, v'nimshach im HaMishkan. There was meshicha done on it when they built the Mishkan. So the Cheshek Shloimo asks over here, he says the Mizbeach HaChitzon also was put on in oil. Moshe Rabbeinu put oil in all the kelim of the Mishkan, including the Mizbeach HaChitzon. So what does Rashi mean to say that the Mizbeach HaChitzon did not have oil, but Mizbeach HaPrimi did have oil? So he answers, yes, in the Mishkan everything was anointed. But then when they built Beis HaMikdash, so the Mizbeach HaChitzon we did not use anymore. We know the Mizbeach HaChitzon had different dimensions. The Mizbeach HaChitzon doing the Midbar was made out of copper. The Mizbeach that was in time of Shlomo HaMelech was made out of stone. It was a different Mizbeach that had no oil. But the Mizbeach HaPrimi, they used the same Mizbeach they had in time of Moshe Rabbeinu, the same Mizbeach from the Mishkan. So that's what Rashi means, that has the oil on it. Now the Mefarshim point out that the Cheshek Shloimo that says that the Mizbeach HaPrimi was not new, it's the Beferish Pasuk against it. The Pasuk is in Melachim Aleph, Perek Zayin, Pasuk Memches. It says, Vayas Shloimo is kol hakelim asher beis Hashem, es Mizbeach Hazov. It says clearly, Shlomo HaMelech built a new Mizbeach called Mizbeach Hazov. And in Rashi, there in Melachim, a little earlier in Perek Vav Pasuk Chof, he asked the question, V'tamani v'shel Moshe lama nignas. Why did they not use Moshe Rabbeinu's Mizbeach in Beis HaMikdash? It's the same size, the same dimensions. So why didn't they use it? Rashi asked the question, doesn't answer. The Orach Chaim in Shmois Perek Chafei Pasuk Tes also discusses it. And he says there's some remnants there that you cannot use Mizbeach Hazov because Mizbeach Hazov is not written in the same order of the Kalim. Mizbeach Hazov is written after. It's supposed to be written earlier in order of the when the Torah speaks about the Kalim, Mizbeach Hazov should be written earlier because that's its location. But it's written later to tell me you're not going to use it. But Al Kopanim we see that the Mizbeach Hazov was new. They didn't use the one of the Mishkan. And I in the Brisker Rav and Parshas Tetzaveh, he has a long piece regarding the Kelim, and he says that there was a special nevuah that came in the time of Shlomo HaMelech, that they said to build everything was a new nevuah. Everything that Shlomo HaMelech did was all a nevuah mishamayim. And therefore he needed to do a new one, because that was part of the nevuah, that Shlomo HaMelech had to create new Beis HaMikdash with new Kelim, even though the Kli was the same size. So you go back to the question, what does Rashi mean to say that the Mizbeach HaChitzon did not have oil in it? And Mizbeach HaPrimi did have oil in it. They both were new and they both did not have oil. So Shlomo Fisher in a Sefer Beis Yishai, Siman Lamed Beis, explains it. And really the Cheshek Shloimo already quotes it. The Gemara tells us that the Kelim that Moshe Rabbeinu did, how were they anointed, how they became proper to be roy lavoida with oil. But the kelim that were done later by Shlomo HaMelech, avodah mecher chasam, just by working in them, they make them roy lavoida. So says Shlomo Fisher, and similarly he's brought down the name of the Tzofras Baneach, the Rogachov, that any kli which is exactly the same size like the one that Moshe Rabbeinu had, is considered to be that's replacing Moshe Rabbeinu's kli. So even though Moshe Rabbeinu's kli is not being used anymore, but because we have another kli which is exactly the same dimension, the exact same size, so it continues the same concept of Moshe Rabbeinu, even though it did not have actual oil in it. But once you start working it, it continues what Moshe Rabbeinu did. But that's only kelim that have the same dimension, the same size, they look the same. But kelim that change, that they don't look the same like Moshe Rabbeinu, that's not continuing what Moshe Rabbeinu did. Says Shlomo Fisher, that's Shad and Rashi. The Mizbeach HaChitzon, it looks different, a different size, it's made of a different material. That does not have Shemen HaMishcha on it. But the Mizbeach HaPrimi, that's the same way, the same shape and design as Moshe Rabbeinu. So even though it was a new one, but because you replace Moshe Rabbeinu's Mizbeach with this one is considered to be that it continues Moshe Rabbeinu, and Shemen and Mishchavet is continuing on. But Al-Kolpanim comes out, according to this, a new deher and machshava, how to look at the different Mizbeachos. The Mizbeach HaChitzoin is a Mizbeach which is new, which is not Moshe Rabbeinu's Mizbeach. It's a new type of Mizbeach. The Mizbeach HaPrimi, that's the same Mizbeach that Moshe Rabbeinu had, even though we made a new one, but it continues the Mahalach of Moshe Rabbeinu. It continues the same process that Moshe Rabbeinu began before. And I'm the Meshechach on Pashtat Tzaveh. He goes in our Gemara and explains, and maybe this connects this whole Mahalach. He says, the Mizbeach HaChitzoin, because it's called a Ritzbah, so then the Gedusha can be lost, because we have a concept that we learn, the Bo Pritzi B'Chilulua. Once going come into Beis Hamikdash, they violate and take away the Gedusha Beis Hamikdash. So Mizbeach HaChitzoin, which is called a Ritzbah, which was called regular Beis Hamikdash, it loses its Gedusha. But Mizbeach HaPrimi, the Mizbeach HaPrimi is a Klisharis. Klisharis never loses its Kedusha. If you connect the Meshech Chochmah to the Beis Yishai, so you could say, whatever Moshe Rabbeinu did, that Kedusha never stops. As the Yisod the Maharal says, what Moshe Rabbeinu began doesn't have an ending to it. It always remains. But the binyan of Beis Hamikdash and the Kalim that are not Moshe Rabbeinu's, that's something that the Kedusha can end, and that's why the Bo Pritzi B'Chilulua applies there. To sponsor, to join the Shomachshava Shiurim, please email shomachshava@gmail.com.